The massive metal doors of Harmony Prime Academy slid open with a soft hiss. Jinsu stepped through them and felt his breath catch in his throat. The main hall stretched out before him like a cathedral made of glass and steel. Sunlight from 3 different suns filtered through the transparent dome overhead, casting rainbow patterns across the polished floor, but it was not the building that made Jinsu stop and stare. It was the students. A tall creature with blue-gray skin and 4 arms walked past him, its movements smooth and graceful. Another being that looked like a walking tree made of crystal chimed softly as it moved, each step creating musical notes. In the distance, Jinsu could see something that might have been a giant butterfly if butterflies grew to the size of humans and wore clothing. "First time seeing aliens up close?" asked a voice beside him. Jinsu turned to see a young Korean woman, about his age. She had short black hair and bright eyes that seemed to take in everything around them. Her name tag read Hyjin in both Korean and the strange symbols that served as galactic common language. "Yes," Jinsu admitted. "You too?" "No, I studied alien biology back on Earth for 2 years before coming here. But seeing them in person is still amazing." Hyjin pointed to the 4-armed being. "That is a Krathen. They are warriors from the Outer Rim, and that crystal creature is a Nexari. They are known for being very logical and smart." Jinsu nodded, trying to remember everything from his preparation classes. The Galactic Council had chosen only 50 humans for this first exchange program. Each human student had spent months learning about different alien cultures and basic galactic language. But standing here now, Jinsu realized that books and videos had not prepared him for the real thing. "Welcome, new students," announced a voice that seemed to come from everywhere at once. "Please proceed to Orientation Hall 7 for your introduction." Ceremony. Jinsu and Hyjin followed the crowd of beings down a wide corridor. The walls displayed moving pictures of different worlds and space stations. Jinsu recognized Earth in one of them, a small blue and green ball floating in the darkness. Of space, Orientation Hall 7 was enormous. Hundreds of seats arranged in a circle faced a central platform. Jinsu and Hyjin found seats near a group of other humans. Around them, aliens of every shape and size filled the remaining chairs. "Look at that one," Hyjin whispered, pointing. Discreetly to their left, Jinsu saw a creature that looked like it was made of flowing water held together by some invisible force. It kept changing shape slightly, never quite staying the same for more than a few seconds. "That is an Alterian," said a deep voice behind them. "They are peaceful beings who live in collective groups." Jinsu and Hyjin turned to see the 4-armed Krathen from the hallway. Up close, Jinsu could see that its skin had a metallic sheen and its eyes were bright yellow. "I am Vex," the Krathen said. "I study combat techniques and military history. What do you humans study?" "I am Jinsu." "I study engineering," Jinsu replied, trying to keep his voice steady. The Krathen was nearly 7 feet tall and looked like it could tear a person in half without much effort. "I am Hyjin. I study biology, especially how different species raise their young," Hyjin added. Vex made a sound that might have been laughter. "Young ones, most species lay eggs and forget about them. Or they raise them in groups with no special attachment." "Why do you study such a simple topic?" Before Hyjin could answer, the lights dimmed and a figure appeared on the central platform. It was tall and thin with pale white skin and large black eyes. Its movements were precise and calculated. "Welcome, students, to Harmony Prime Academy," the figure said in perfect galactic common language. "I am Professor Thane of the Nexari. I will be your primary instructor for the course titled Understanding Species Behavior and Biology." Professor Thane gestured and a holographic display appeared above the platform. It showed different creatures from across the galaxy. "Each of you comes from a different world, a different culture, a different way of thinking. Here you will learn not just facts about other species, but how they think, how they live, and how they survive." The hologram changed to show families of different alien species. Some showed groups of creatures gathered around egg clutches. Others displayed adults teaching young ones to hunt or gather food. "Your first major project will examine parental behavior across species. You will work in mixed groups to understand how different beings care for their offspring. Jinsu felt Vex shift in the seat behind him. Several other aliens made sounds of interest or confusion. Now, Professor Thane continued, let me assign your research groups. Group 1 will include Jinsu and Hyjin from Earth, Vex from Krathen. Prime, Zilm from Nexari Central, and Quinn from the Alterian Collective. A creature near the front that looked like a tall, thin version of Professor Thane raised one hand. Jinsu guessed that was Zael and Dot, the water-like being from earlier flowed. Slightly in what might have been a greeting. That had to be Quinn. Each group will spend the next several weeks studying how your species approaches child care, protection, and education. You will then present your findings to the class and participate in practical exercises. Professor Thane paused and looked directly at the human students. I am particularly interested in human parental behavior. The reports we have received from Earth are quite contradictory. Some describe humans as peaceful and cooperative. Others suggest extreme aggression when offspring are threatened. We hope to understand which reports are accurate. Jinsu felt a chill run down his spine. He remembered stories his mother had told him about parents doing impossible things to save their children. Stories about mothers lifting cars off trapped kids or fathers fighting off wild animals with their bare hands. That concludes today's orientation. Please meet with your assigned groups tomorrow to begin your research. Classes start the day after tomorrow. As the students began to leave, Vex approached Jinsu and Hyjin. So, humans, Vex said. Tell me about these contradictory reports. Are you peaceful or aggressive? Hyjin looked at Jinsu before answering. We are peaceful most of the time. But when our children are in danger, we become something else entirely. Vex's yellow eyes narrowed. What do you mean, something else? You will understand when you see it, Jinsu said quietly. But I hope for everyone's sake that you never have to. The Krathen warrior laughed, a harsh barking sound. I have fought in battles across 12 star systems. I doubt human parents could show me anything I have not already seen. Jinsu and Hyjin exchanged a look. They both knew that Vex was wrong, but they also knew that explaining it would be impossible. Some things had to be witnessed to be believed. As they walked back toward their dormitory, Hyjin spoke softly to Jinsu. Do you think they will understand when we try to explain it? Jinsu shook his head. No, they think in terms of logic and survival calculations. They do not understand what happens to a human when their child is threatened. Then we will have to show them. I hope we never have to, Jinsu replied. Because if we do, it means a child is in danger. They walked the rest of the way in silence, both thinking about what their new alien classmates would learn about humanity in the coming weeks. The research lab buzzed with quiet conversation as the mixed species groups settled into their assigned work areas. Jinsu sat at a curved table designed to accommodate beings of different sizes and body types. To his left, Hyjin pulled up holographic displays showing Earth databases. Across from them, Vex lounged in a reinforced chair built for his heavier frame, while Zilm stood at a tall workstation that adjusted to his height. Quinn flowed into a specially designed containment field that allowed the Alterian to maintain their liquid form while participating in group activities. Their voice emerged from speakers built into the field generator. We should begin with basic data collection, Zilm announced, his voice carrying the precise tone that all Nexari seemed to share. Each species will present their standard child-rearing practices, protection methods, and survival strategies. Vex crossed his forearms and leaned back. This should be simple. Krathen children are raised in communal barracks from age 3. Before that, they stay with birth parents for basic survival training. When threatened, adults fight if the threat is small or retreat if the threat is large. Logic determines the response. Alterian young are cared for by the entire collective. Quinn's translated voice explained. We share knowledge and resources equally. Violence is rare because cooperation always produces better outcomes. If danger appears, we seek peaceful solutions first. Zilm nodded approvingly. Nexari reproduce through controlled genetic combination. Young ones receive education in designated facilities. Protection protocols follow mathematical models that maximize species survival probability. Emotional attachment to individual offspring would be counterproductive. All three aliens turned to look at Jinsu and Hyjin expectantly. Human children stay with their birth parents for many years, Hyjin began, usually 16 to 18 years or longer. Parents form very strong emotional bonds with their children from before birth. Emotional bonds? Zilm questioned. Please, define this term in behavioral context. Jinsu thought for a moment. Parents love their children more than they love themselves. They would rather die than let their child be hurt. Vex made the barking sound that served as Krathan laughter. That makes no survival sense. If the adult dies, the young one dies too. Better to preserve the adult and produce more offspring. That is not how humans think, Hyjin said quietly. When a human child is in danger, parents do not think about logic or mathematics. They only think about saving their child. Can you provide specific examples? Zilm asked. Activating his data recorder, Hyjin accessed the Earth database and projected several historical cases onto the shared display. Here is a case from 2019. A woman lifted a 3,000-pound vehicle off her trapped son. Medical scans showed she should not have been physically capable of this feat. Impossible, Vex declared immediately. I have seen the physical specifications for humans. You are among the weakest species in the galaxy. No human could lift such weight. Here is another case, Jinsu added, scrolling through the files. A father fought off a 400-pound bear with his bare hands to protect his daughter. He sustained severe injuries but continued fighting until the bear retreated. Quinn's form rippled with what might have been confusion. Why did he not simply carry the child away from the danger? Retreat would have been safer for both. Because the bear was faster than a human carrying a child? Hyjin explained. The only way to save his daughter was to stop the bear. Zilm studied the data carefully. These reports must contain errors. The mathematical probability of successful combat between an unarmed human and a predator of that size is approximately 0.003%. No rational being would attempt such an action. But humans are not always rational when it comes to protecting children, Jinsu said. There are thousands of similar cases in our history. Parents running into burning buildings, fighting multiple attackers, even stopping speeding vehicles with their bodies. Vex leaned forward, his yellow eyes narrowing. You claim that human parents become temporarily insane when their offspring are threatened? Not insane, Hyjin corrected. Something else. Something stronger and more dangerous than normal humans. This requires further investigation, Zilm announced. We will need to create behavioral models for each species based on this data. Then we can test the accuracy of these models. Over the following days, each group member contributed detailed information about their species' parental behaviors. The aliens provided logical, systematic approaches to child rearing that prioritize species survival over individual attachment, Vex described. Krathan combat doctrine, where warriors would sacrifice themselves only if it guaranteed the survival of a larger number of offspring. We fight smart, not emotional, he explained. Dead warriors protect no one. Quinn shared Alterian communal care systems where resources were distributed based on collective need rather than individual family bonds. No single young one is more important than the group's survival, their translated voice stated. Zilm presented Nexari mathematical models that calculated optimal resource allocation for maximum offspring survival rates. Emotional attachment introduces variables that decrease efficiency, he noted, but when Jinsu and Hyjin presented human case studies, their alien teammates struggled to understand the data. Look at this case, Hyjin said, displaying another historical record. A mother in Japan continued searching for her missing child for 30 years. She spent all her money, neglected her health, and refused to give up even when authorities declared the child dead. Completely irrational, Zilm concluded. After 1 year, the probability of finding a missing child drops below measurable levels. Continuing the search wastes resources that could be used for other offspring. She never had other children, Jinsu added. She spent her entire life looking for that one child. Vex shook his head in disbelief. This behavior would destroy any warrior clan? Resources must be preserved for the group, not wasted on impossible missions. But she eventually found her child, Haijin said quietly. After 30 years, she found him alive on another continent. The authorities were wrong. The lab fell silent. Zome's recording device made soft clicking sounds as it processed this information. The statistical probability of success was so low that our computers would round it to 0, Zome finally said. Yet the human female continued anyway. That is what we do, Jinsu said. Human parents never give up on their children. Never, even when everyone else says it is impossible. Quinn's form shifted into what their species manual described as a confusion pattern. But what if the parent dies during this impossible mission? Then both parent and child are lost. Then at least the parent dies trying, Haijin replied. That is better than giving up and living with the knowledge that they did not do everything possible. Vex stood up suddenly, his chair scraping against the floor. I need to report this to my combat instructors. If humans fight like this when protecting young ones, it changes many tactical calculations. You still do not believe the reports are accurate, Jinsu observed. I believe you think they are accurate, Vex corrected. But until I see proof with my own eyes, I cannot accept that any species behaves so irrationally. Zone's large black eyes fixed on the human students. Perhaps we should design practical tests to verify these behavioral claims. What kind of tests? Haijin asked carefully. Simulations, Zilm replied. We can create scenarios that trigger protective responses and measure the actual behaviors versus predicted responses. Jinsu felt a cold weight settle in his stomach. He looked at Haijin and saw the same concern in her eyes. Their alien teammates had no idea what they were suggesting. Are you certain you want to do that? Jinsu asked quietly. Of course, Vex said confidently. It will be educational for all of us. What could possibly go wrong with a simple behavioral simulation? The holographic simulation chamber was the most advanced technology at Harmony Prime Academy. Professor Thane led the group of students into the large circular room where walls, floor, and ceiling could project completely realistic environments. The room could create anything from peaceful meadows to dangerous battlefields. Today we will test your behavioral models, Professor Thane announced. Each group will experience scenarios designed to trigger protective responses toward simulated offspring. The computer will record your actions and compare them to your predicted behaviors. Jinsu felt his heart rate increase as he looked around the empty white room. Beside him, Haijin shifted nervously from foot to foot. Their alien teammates seemed eager and confident. We will begin with low-threat scenarios and gradually increase danger levels, Professor Thane explained. Remember, everything you see and hear will feel completely real, but you cannot be truly harmed. The computer will monitor your stress levels and stop the simulation if necessary. Vex cracked his knuckles with a sound like breaking branches. Finally, we will see if human protective behavior is as extreme as claimed. I have calculated 17 different response patterns based on logical threat assessment. Zilm added, checking his portable computer. This should be quite educational. Quinn's liquid form rippled with anticipation. Our collective is curious to observe individual protective behaviors rather than group cooperation methods. Professor Thane activated the simulation controls. Scenario 1 begins now. The white room disappeared. Jinsu found himself standing in a pleasant park on what looked like Earth. Green grass stretched in all directions, dotted with trees and flowers. Birds sang in the distance, and a warm breeze carried the scent of blooming plants. A small human child, perhaps 5 years old, played nearby with a colorful ball. The child looked exactly like a real human, complete with bright eyes and infectious laughter. Fascinating detail, Zilm noted, studying the simulated child. The holographic projection is nearly perfect. Suddenly, a large dog appeared at the edge of the park. It was not moving aggressively, just walking toward the play area. The dog was big but appeared friendly, with its tongue hanging out and tail wagging. Vex immediately moved to position himself between the dog and the child. His forearms spread wide, ready to grab the animal if necessary. Standard defensive posture, he announced. Minimal threat requires minimal response. Quinn flowed closer to the child, ready to shield them with their liquid body if needed. We would communicate with the creature first to determine its intentions. Zilm pulled out a small device and pointed it at the dog. I am scanning for threat indicators. Large size but peaceful body language suggests low danger probability. Jinsu and Haijin reacted differently. Both moved immediately to place themselves directly between the dog and the child. Jinsu picked up a fallen tree branch while Haijin scooped up the simulated child in her arms. Wait, Vex said, confused. The creature shows no hostile intent. Why are you preparing for combat? It is a large, unknown animal near a human child, Haijin replied, holding the simulated child protectively. We do not take chances. The dog approached slowly, still appearing friendly. It sniffed the air and wagged its tail harder. Zilm's scanner beeped. Confirmed non-hostile. The creature is seeking interaction, not violence. But Jinsu did not lower the branch. His eyes stayed fixed on the animal, watching every movement. When the dog took another step forward, Jinsu moved to block its path. Stay back, Jinsu warned the holographic dog, even though he knew it could not understand him. The simulation ended, and the park dissolved back into the white room. Interesting, Professor Thane noted, reviewing the data. The humans showed elevated stress responses and defensive positioning despite minimal actual threat. Scenario 2 will increase the danger level. The second simulation placed them in the same park, but this time the child was playing near a busy street. Vehicles moved past at normal speed. Staying in their designated lanes, the alien students positioned themselves strategically around the area, ready to guide the child away from the road, if necessary, but not showing particular concern. Jinsu and Haijin immediately flanked the child, with Haijin taking the simulated child's hand while Jinsu watched the traffic with intense focus. The vehicles are maintaining safe distances, Quinn observed. Current threat level remains low. A ball rolled into the street. The simulated child started to chase after it. Vex reached out with one arm to stop the child. Simple restraint prevents danger, no need for extreme measures. But before Vex could complete his movement, both Jinsu and Haijin had already reacted. Haijin grabbed the child and pulled them back while Jinsu stepped into the street himself. Blocking any approaching vehicles with his own body, a car honked and swerved around Jinsu, who did not move until he was certain the child was completely safe. Jinsu, you could have been hit, Zilm pointed out. The logical response would be to retrieve the ball after traffic cleared. The child was moving toward danger, Jinsu replied. I stopped the danger. By putting yourself in greater danger, Vex noted. This behavior pattern makes no tactical sense. The simulations continued, each one increasing the threat level. In the third scenario, a small fire started near the child's play area. The aliens calmly located fire suppression equipment and followed proper emergency procedures. Jinsu and Haijin charged directly toward the child through the spreading flames, with no regard for the proper evacuation routes or safety protocols. You are supposed to exit the building first, then call for help, Quinn pointed out as they watched Haijin carry the simulated child through a wall of fire. The child could not wait for proper procedures, Haijin replied, her simulated clothing. Still smoking. By the fourth scenario, which involved armed attackers threatening the child, the difference in responses became even more extreme. The alien students took defensive positions and called for security forces, following their species' standard protocols. Jinsu picked up a heavy metal pipe from the simulation debris and attacked 3 armed figures. Simultaneously, Haijin positioned herself as a human shield between the attackers and the child, even though she was completely unarmed. This is suicide behavior, Vex declared, watching Jinsu fight opponents who were larger and better armed. No rational being would attempt such an assault. The child was in immediate danger, Jinsu explained after the simulation ended. Someone had to stop the threat. But you had no weapons and no backup, Zilm protested. Mathematical probability of success was below 5%. I did not calculate the odds, Jinsu admitted. I just saw the child needed help. Professor Thane studied the data readouts with growing interest. The human stress responses are unlike anything in our databases. Heart rate, adrenaline levels, and brain activity all show patterns we have never seen before. What kind of patterns? Haijin asked. Your bodies appear to be generating strength and speed beyond normal human capabilities. Pain sensitivity drops to nearly zero. Fear responses shut down completely. It is as if you become different beings entirely. Vex leaned forward, his yellow eyes wide. Different how? According to these readings, when protecting the simulated child, both humans exhibited physical capabilities that should be impossible for your species. Strength increased by over 300%. Reaction time improved by 250%. You ignored injuries that should have been incapacitating. Zilm's computer made rapid calculations. Such physiological changes would require massive hormonal and neurological alterations. How is this possible? Jinsu and Haijin looked at each other. They had felt the changes during the simulations. The overwhelming need to protect the child had made everything else fade away. Pain, fear, and logical thinking had all disappeared, leaving only the drive to keep the young one safe. We tried to tell you, Haijin said quietly. When human children are threatened, we become something else. But what exactly do you become? Quinn asked, their liquid form shifting with curiosity. We become whatever we need to be to save them, Jinsu replied, no matter what it costs us. Vex stood up slowly, his warrior training making him recognize what he had witnessed. You become weapons. Living weapons that cannot be stopped or reasoned with, only when we have to, Haijin said. Only when there is no other choice. Professor Thane saved the simulation data and turned to face the students. I believe we need to run one more test. A scenario with multiple threats and extended duration. Are you willing to participate? The aliens nodded eagerly, still not fully. Understanding what they had witnessed, Jinsu felt a cold chill run through him. Professor, are you certain that is wise? Do not worry, Professor Thane assured him. It is only a simulation. What could possibly go wrong? But Jinsu and Haijin both knew that some lines, once crossed, could never be uncrossed, even in a simulation. The field trip to Agricultural Moon 7 was supposed to be a routine educational visit. The small transport ship carried 23 students from different species, along with Professor Thane and young Kor, a juvenile Alterian who was participating. In early education programs, Jinsu pressed his face against the viewport as they descended through the moon's atmosphere. Below them stretched endless fields of grain and vegetable crops that fed 3 star systems. The agricultural domes gleamed like jewels scattered across the surface. The farming techniques here combine methods from 12 different worlds. Professor Thane explained to the students. You will see how different species work together to maximize food production. Haijin sat beside Jinsu, reviewing her notes about Alterian biology. Young Kor flowed in a small containment field near the front of the ship, their liquid form shimmering with excitement about their first off-world trip. I have never seen real farming before, Kor's translated voice said. On our homeworld, we absorb nutrients directly from our environment. Vex checked his equipment pack for the 3rd time. This moon has an excellent security record. No hostile life forms, stable weather, minimal risk factors? Zilm nodded approvingly. The statistical probability of dangerous incidents is less than 0.001%. This should be a peaceful learning experience. The ship shuddered suddenly, and emergency lights began flashing red throughout the cabin. What is happening? Quinn asked, their form rippling with concern. Professor Thane moved quickly to the pilot's communication panel. Engine failure, announced grimly. We are losing altitude rapidly. Through the viewport, Jinsu watched the ground rushing up toward them much too fast. The pilot's voice crackled over the intercom, speaking in rapid galactic common that Jinsu could barely follow. All students prepare for emergency landing, Professor Thane translated. Secure yourselves immediately. The next few minutes passed in a blur of noise and terror. The ship hit the ground hard, bounced twice, and slid across a rocky valley before, finally coming to rest against a cluster of large boulders. When the emergency lights stopped flashing and the ship fell silent, Jinsu slowly opened his eyes. His head throbbed, and something warm was trickling down his forehead. Around him, students were groaning and calling out in various languages. "Status report," Professor Thane commanded, pulling himself upright despite a clearly injured arm. "Vex." Responding. "Minor injuries only," the Krathan warrior called out. "Quinn functional but containment field damaged," came another voice. "Zome operational." "Computing survival probabilities," the Nexari announced. "Hyjin here." "I think my shoulder is dislocated," Hyjin said through gritted teeth. "Jinsu reporting." "Head injury but mobile," Jinsu added, wiping blood from his eyes. Then they heard a weak sound from the front of the ship. Young Corps' containment field had been severely damaged in the crash. The juvenile Alterian was leaking fluid and barely maintaining their shape. "Corps needs immediate medical attention," Professor Thane said urgently. "The emergency beacon is transmitting, but rescue could take 12 to 18 hours. Zome consulted his portable computer, analyzing local conditions. This valley experiences nocturnal predator activity, species designation, ravagers, pack hunters highly aggressive, attracted to blood scents. "How dangerous are these ravagers?" Vex asked, already moving to secure the damaged ship entrances. "Extremely. They hunt in groups of 20 to 30 individuals. Each ravager stands approximately 4 feet tall but possesses razor-sharp claws and powerful jaws. They typically attack anything that appears wounded or vulnerable." Hyjin crawled over to where young Corps lay weakly in their damaged containment field. "How long can Corps survive without proper medical equipment?" "Unknown," Professor Thane admitted. "Alterian physiology is still not fully understood by other species." As if summoned by their conversation, a howling sound echoed across the valley. It was answered by another howl, then another, until the air filled with the eerie calls of hunting pack animals. "They have detected us," Zome announced unnecessarily. "Standard survival protocol suggests we establish defensive positions around the most defensible areas of the crash site." Vex began organizing the mobile students into a perimeter defense. "We set up overlapping fields of fire here, here, and here. Anyone too injured to fight should retreat to the ship's rear compartment. That includes young Corps," Quinn noted. "The juvenile cannot defend themselves in their current condition." "Agreed," Zome said, making rapid calculations. "If we cannot defend the entire crash site, we should consolidate our position around the emergency beacon. Sacrificing the most vulnerable individuals will give the rest of us the best chance of survival until rescue arrives." "What do you mean, sacrificing?" Hyjin asked sharply. "Simple mathematics," Zilm explained. "We have limited resources and energy. Defending someone who cannot contribute to the group defense reduces our overall survival probability. Better to focus our efforts on protecting those who can fight," Vex nodded grimly. "In combat, difficult choices must be made. The young Alterian cannot help defend the group. Protecting them divides our attention and weakens our position." "You are talking about abandoning a child," Jinsu said quietly, moving to stand between the aliens and young Corps. "I'm talking about survival," Vex replied. "This is how military units stay alive when resources are limited." The howling grew closer. Through gaps in the damaged ship hull, they could see dark shapes moving among the rocks outside. "We need to decide quickly," Professor Thane urged. "The Ravagers will attack within minutes." Quinn's form shifted uncomfortably. "Perhaps we could create a distraction to draw the Predators away from our main position. If we left young Corps in the forward section, the Ravagers might focus their attention there while we escape to higher ground." "That would be murder," Hyjin said flatly. "That would be survival," Zome corrected. "Emotional attachment to individuals must not override logical decision-making." Jinsu looked down at young Corps, who was barely conscious but still trying to maintain their liquid form. The juvenile Alterian looked so young and helpless, dependent on the adults around them for protection. "No," Jinsu said simply. "No what?" Vex asked. "No, we do not abandon the child. No, we do not use them as a distraction. No, we do not sacrifice them for better survival odds." Haijin moved to stand beside Jinsu, cradling her injured arm. "Jinsu is right. We protect Core no matter what it costs us." "You are being irrational," Zilm protested. "The mathematical reality is clear." "I do not care about mathematics," Jinsu replied, picking up a piece of metal debris from the crash. "I care about that child." The first Ravager appeared at the ship's damaged entrance, its yellow eyes reflecting the emergency lighting. It was smaller than Jinsu had expected but moved with the fluid grace of a natural predator. Vex raised his weapon and fired, driving the creature back temporarily. "They are testing our defenses. The main attack will come soon." "Last chance?" "To reconsider," Quinn urged. "We could still evacuate to a more defensible position." Jinsu tested the weight of his improvised weapon and positioned himself directly in front of young Core. "We make our stand here. All of us. You will get us?" "All killed," Vex warned. "Maybe," Jinsu admitted. "But no child dies on my watch. Not today, not ever." Jin found her own piece of debris to use as a weapon, despite her injured shoulder. "Same here. We protect the little ones. That is what humans do." The howling stopped suddenly, leaving the valley in ominous silence. "Here they come," Vex announced, and the real test began. The first wave of Ravagers hit the crash site like a living nightmare. 20 creatures poured through gaps in the ship's hull, their claws scraping against metal as they searched for prey. Each Ravager was the size of a large Volf but moved. With reptilian speed and intelligence, Vex fired his weapon in controlled bursts, each shot calculated to conserve energy while maintaining maximum effectiveness. When forced to retreat, he fell back to predetermined positions and continued fighting from cover. Quinn flowed around the battlefield like liquid mercury, forming barriers and shields to protect the group while seeking opportunities to strike at Ravager weak points. Their movements were graceful and efficient. Zilm coordinated the defense from a central position, calling out tactical information and monitoring everyone's energy levels. His responses followed textbook military doctrine perfectly. Jinsu and Haijin fought like creatures from another world entirely. When 3 Ravagers broke through the defensive line heading straight for young Core, Jinsu intercepted them with his improvised metal club. The logical response would have been to delay them while calling for backup. Instead, Jinsu attacked. He swung the heavy piece of debris with enough force to crush the first Ravager's skull completely. The second creature leaped at him, claws extended, and Jinsu caught it in midair. Despite his smaller size, he slammed the Ravager against the ship's wall hard enough to dent the metal. The third Ravager circled behind him, but Jinsu spun around and brought his weapon down in an overhead strike that split the creature from head to tail. "Impossible," Zilm muttered, watching his scanners. "Jinsu's strength readings are off the charts. He should not be capable of such feats." Haijin fought with equal intensity despite her injured shoulder. When a pack of Ravagers tried to flank their position, she grabbed a piece of sharp metal and charged directly into their midst. Her knowledge of alien biology served her well as she targeted nerve clusters and vital organs with surgical precision. But it was not just her accuracy that amazed the alien students. It was her complete disregard for personal safety. Haijin took hits that should have disabled her, bleeding from multiple wounds, yet continued fighting without slowing down. "Her pain responses have shut down completely," Professor Thane observed in fascination. "Brain scans show she is not registering injury signals at all." The second wave of Ravagers was larger and better coordinated. They attacked from multiple directions simultaneously, forcing the defenders to split their attention. Vex fought competently but conservatively, managing his energy and avoiding unnecessary risks. "We need to establish fallback positions," he called out. "This position is becoming untenable." "Agreed," Quinn responded, flowing toward a more defensible area. "We should consolidate our forces, but Jinsu and Haijin did not retreat. When the Ravagers pressed their attack toward young Kor's position, both humans moved forward to meet them. "What are you doing?" Vex shouted. "Fall back to the secondary position." "The child is here," Jinsu replied, swinging his weapon in wide arcs that kept multiple Ravagers at bay. "We do not leave the child." "You are outnumbered 5-1, Zilm protested. "Tactical withdrawal is the only logical option." Haijin ducked under a Ravager's claws and drove her makeshift blade up into its chest cavity. "Logic does not matter. The child matters." The battle continued through the night. Each wave of Ravagers seemed larger and more aggressive than the last. The alien students fought bravely but followed rational tactical principles. When positions became untenable, they retreated. When energy ran low, they conserved strength. When injuries mounted, they sought medical attention. Jinsu and Haijin followed no such principles. As the hours passed and their strength should have failed, they seemed to become more dangerous rather than less. Every successful attack against them only made them fight harder. "This defies all known biology," Professor Thane said, reviewing his continuous scans of the humans. "Their bodies are producing adrenaline and endorphins at levels that should be lethal. Their muscle fibers are operating at 400% normal capacity. They should have collapsed hours ago." "Look at their eyes," Quinn whispered in awe. "They are not the same beings who boarded our ship this morning." It was true. Jinsu and Haijin's eyes had changed during the fighting. Gone was any trace of fear, pain, or rational thought. They had become living weapons focused on a single purpose, protecting young Kor at any cost. When a massive Ravager Alpha broke through the defenses and headed straight for the injured Alterian, Jinsu intercepted it with his bare hands. The creature was twice his size and armed with claws that could shred metal, but Jinsu fought it hand to hand. Vex watched in stunned silence as Jinsu wrestled the Alpha Ravager to the ground and began beating it with his fists. "No weapon, no armor. He is fighting that thing with nothing but his hands. And winning." Zilm added quietly. The Alpha Ravager's claws opened deep wounds across Jinsu's chest and arms, but he did not slow down. Blood ran down his face from multiple cuts, but his attacks only became more ferocious. When the creature tried to break away and circle around to attack young Kor from another angle, Jinsu grabbed it by the throat and refused to let go. "He will not release it," Professor Thane observed. "Even though continuing to fight means certain death for him." Haijin was equally relentless. When her makeshift weapon broke, she picked up claws from dead Ravagers and continued fighting. When those broke, she used her hands. When a Ravager managed to knock her down, she bit its throat until it stopped moving. "They have been fighting for 8 hours straight," Zilm announced, checking his chronometer. "No being should be capable of sustained combat for that duration." "Krathan warriors train for endurance combat," Vex said, his voice filled with something approaching reverence. "Our elite units can fight for perhaps 4 hours before exhaustion forces retreat. I have never seen anything like this." As dawn approached, the Ravager attacks began to lose intensity. The pack hunters had taken severe losses, and their natural instincts told them to withdraw and seek easier prey, but Jinsu and Haijin did not relax their guard. They maintained their protective positions around young Kor, watching the darkness for any sign of renewed attack. "The immediate threat appears to be over," Professor Thane announced. "Rescue ships should arrive within the hour." Only then did the alien students see the true cost of the night's battle. Jinsu was covered in blood from dozens of wounds. His improvised weapon had broken hours ago, and his hands were torn from fighting bare-handed against clawed predators. Haijin was in similar condition. Her injured shoulder had been further damaged during the fighting, and she bore claw marks across her face and arms. But both humans remained standing, still positioned between the outside world and young Kor. "You should seek medical attention," Quinn urged. "Your injuries require immediate treatment." "After rescue arrives," Jinsu replied, his voice hoarse. "From hours of shouting and fighting, not before." "The danger is past," Vex pointed out. "You can rest now." "Can we?" Hyjin asked, her eyes still scanning the horizon. Are you absolutely certain no threats remain? The alien students looked at each other uncomfortably. They had witnessed something that challenged everything they thought they knew about rational behavior and survival instincts. You fought for 8 hours without rest, Zilm said quietly. You sustained injuries that should have been incapacitating. You refused tactical withdrawal even when it meant almost certain death. Why? Jinsu looked down at young Kor, who was sleeping peacefully. In their damage containment field, alive and safe? Because that is what we do, he said simply. We protect the little ones, but at what cost? Vex asked. You nearly died. Multiple times. The cost does not matter, Hyjin replied. The child matters, nothing else. In the distance, they could hear the sound of approaching rescue ships, but the alien students knew that what they had witnessed this night would change everything they thought they understood about humanity. The medical bay of Harmony Prime Academy hummed with quiet activity as Jinsu slowly opened his eyes. His body felt like it had been hit by a cargo transport, and every muscle ached with deep, bone-weary exhaustion. Tubes and wires connected him to various monitoring devices that beeped softly in the dim light. You are awake, said a familiar voice. Jinsu turned his head carefully and saw Vex sitting in a chair beside his bed. The Krathan warrior looked different somehow, more subdued than usual. How long was I unconscious? Jinsu asked, his voice barely above a whisper. 3 days, Vex replied. The medical staff said your body had pushed itself far beyond safe limits. They were not certain you would wake up. Hyjin? Kor, are they safe? Both alive and recovering. Hyjin woke up yesterday. Young Kor's injuries were less severe than first thought. The Alterian medical specialists say they will make a full recovery. Jinsu felt a wave of relief wash over him. Good, that is what matters. Vex leaned forward in his chair. I need to ask you something, Jinsu. During the attack, why did you not retreat when I ordered tactical withdrawal? Any reasonable warrior would have fallen back to a better defensive position. Jinsu thought about the question for a long moment, because Kor was not in the better defensive position. Kor was where the Ravagers could reach them. But you could have carried the young one with you during the retreat. Kor's containment field was too damaged to move safely. Besides, retreating would have meant giving the Ravagers access to the ship's interior. They could have set up ambush positions that would have been impossible to clear later. Vex shook his head slowly. You are creating logical reasons after the fact. During the battle, you were not thinking strategically. You were not thinking at all. You had become something else entirely. Before Jinsu could respond, the medical bay doors opened and Professor Thane entered, followed by Zilm and Quinn. All 3 aliens looked at Jinsu with expressions that might have been awe, confusion, or fear. Jinsu, Professor Thane said formally. We need to discuss what happened on Agricultural Moon 7. What is there to discuss? We were attacked. We defended ourselves. Everyone survived. You defended a position that was tactically impossible to hold, Zilm stated, consulting his ever-present computer. You fought for 8 hours against overwhelming odds with minimal weapons and no backup. Mathematical models show your survival probability was less than 0.1%. Yet here we are, Jinsu pointed out. Yes, here you are. And that changes everything. Professor Thane activated a holographic display above Jinsu's bed. It showed biological readings from the night of the attack. These are your vital signs during the battle. Look at the stress hormone levels, the neural activity patterns, the muscle performance indicators. Jinsu studied the readouts with growing amazement. These readings cannot be correct. No human body could function at these levels. That is what we thought, Professor Thane agreed. But we have confirmed the data through multiple sources. When young Kor was threatened, your physiology changed in ways that should be medically impossible. Quinn's liquid form rippled with nervous energy. We have transmitted preliminary reports to our respective homeworlds. The response has been quite dramatic. What kind of response? Jinsu asked warily. The Krathan High Command wants to study human protective behavior for military applications, Vex admitted. They believe warriors who could fight like you did would be unstoppable in battle. The Nexari Science Council is requesting detailed biological samples to understand how humans achieve such physical enhancement, Zilm added. They think it could revolutionize medical treatment across the galaxy. The Alterian Collective has declared all human territories to be protected space, Quinn said quietly. They believe any species capable of such self-sacrifice for non-related young should never be threatened. Jinsu felt a chill despite the warm medical bay. They want to study us like laboratory animals. Some do, Professor Thane confirmed. Others want to recruit humans as personal bodyguards for their offspring. A few species are demanding that humans be classified as a potential threat and monitored constantly. The medical bay doors opened again, and Haijin entered slowly, still, favoring her injured shoulder. She moved carefully but under her own power. I heard voices and thought Jinsu might be awake, she said, settling into another chair. Are we having the conversation about how we broke everyone's understanding of rational behavior? We were just explaining the galactic response to your actions, Professor Thane said. Haijin nodded grimly. Let me guess. Some want to study us. Some want to hire us, and some want to lock us up. That is an accurate summary, Zilm confirmed. What none of them understand, Jinsu said carefully, is that what happened on that moon was not some special human ability that can be replicated or controlled. It was just what happens when you threaten our children. But Kor is not your child, Vex pointed out, not even your species. Yet you fought for them as if they were your own offspring. All children are our children when they need protection, Haijin explained. That is how humans think. Young ones are precious, regardless of what species they belong to. This concept is difficult for other species to understand, Professor Thane admitted. Most galactic cultures see child-rearing as a species-specific behavior. They protect their own young but feel no obligation toward others. That seems cold, Jinsu observed. It seems logical, Zilm corrected. Resources spent protecting other species' offspring reduce resources available for your own genetic line. Maybe, Haijin said. But what kind of galaxy would we live in? If everyone thought that way? Quinn's form shifted into what their people call the contemplation pattern. Young Kor has asked to speak with both of you when you are recovered. They want to understand why you risked so much for them. What did you tell them? Jinsu asked. That we do not understand either, Vex replied honestly. In my warrior culture, we protect our clan's children because they carry our genetic legacy. But you protected an alien child with no possible benefit to yourselves. The benefit was obvious, Haijin said simply. A child lived who might have died. How is that not benefit enough? Professor Thane made notes on his tablet. This conversation will be included in our final report to the Galactic Council. They need to understand that human protective behavior cannot be weaponized or controlled because it stems from fundamental values rather than biological programming. What will happen now? Jinsu asked. That depends partly on you, Professor. Thane replied. The Council wants to hear directly from humans about your protective instincts. They are offering you positions as cultural ambassadors to help other species understand human psychology. We just want to finish our education, Haijin said. We did not ask to become galactic celebrities. Unfortunately, that choice may no longer be yours, Zilm pointed out. Knowledge of human protective capabilities is already spreading throughout the galaxy. Some species will see you as valuable allies. Others may view you as threats to be eliminated. Jinsu felt the weight of unintended consequences settling on his shoulders. We were just protecting a child. Yes, Vex said quietly. And in doing so, you showed the galaxy something it had never seen before. You showed us what it means to value a life more than your own survival. A soft chime indicated visiting hours were ending. The alien students prepared to leave, but Vex lingered by Jinsu's bedside. I have one more question, the Krathan warrior said. If you had known the cost, would you still have fought to protect young Kor? Jinsu did not hesitate. Yes, every time. For any child. Even knowing it might change how the entire galaxy sees your species? Especially knowing that, Hyjin added from her chair, if our actions convince even one species to protect children better, then whatever happens to us was worth it. Vex nodded slowly and headed for the door. As he reached it, he turned back one final time. The Krathan have a saying, a warrior's strength is measured by what they will die for. We always thought it meant territory or honor or clan loyalty. But you have shown us something greater. You will die for the simple right of a child to live. Any child, every child. That is not strength, Jinsu said quietly. That is just being human. No, Vex replied as the doors closed behind him. That is being something the galaxy has never seen before, something unthinkable, something that gives us hope for a better future. In the quiet medical bay, Jinsu and Hyjin sat in comfortable silence, both thinking about young Kor sleeping safely in the pediatric ward, and about the galaxy that was slowly learning what it meant when humans said they protected the little ones. All of them.